I almost didn't review this cooler. As you can see, it clearly does not fit within the test system here. But I'm glad that I did because this cooler is absolutely insane. Welcome to Machines and More. Today we'll be looking at a new cooler from Cooler Master. This is the Masterair 824 Stealth, or the MA824. Big thanks to Cooler Master for supplying the test sample unit today and also for convincing me to take a look at this, even though it didn't fit in here. As with all my reviews, they are not paid for by the manufacturer, and you can expect a fair and well-researched review. Some of you might have seen the preview of the upcoming Noctua D15 V2, and that's still forthcoming, but it may still be quite a while because we are still waiting for those 140mm fans to be released, and I'm sure the cooler is going to be pretty incredible. But one of the key updates there, other than the new 140mm fans, is the move for that heatsink from 6 heat pipes to 8 heat pipes. Well, guess what? This cooler from Cooler Master already gets to 8 heat pipes. Make no mistake, it is a massive dual tower air cooler, and I almost passed on this one because of its size and because it has limited usability within the realm of mini-itx, which I usually cover. But we are here, and you're definitely going to have the right setup to fit this one. Other than the obvious case clearance limitations, there's some potential motherboard conflicts as well, which I'll cover when we get to mounting. Out of the box, you get this massive cooler with the middle 135mm fan pre-mounted, along with the second 120mm fan separate, box of accessories, and the base plate you see right here. Very large rectangular shape with thermal paste pre-applied. Usually Cooler Master supplies a small tube of paste, but instead of that they've gone pre-applied here, and they're showing off that nice brand identity. Really cool. A small tube would have still been nice for remounts, but there isn't one included. In the box of accessories, you get a screwdriver, long splitter cable, and the mounting hardware for both Intel 1700, 1200, 115X, and AMD AM4, AM5 sockets. This dual tower heatsink features one tower with a notch cut out and a tower without the notch. The notched side is intended to be on the RAM side of your case, and when mounted that way, the Cooler Master logo is right side up. That 8 in the 824 name refers to 8 heat pipes. Placement of that last heat pipe is towards the interior, so it's sort of, the heat pipe arrangement sort of wraps around, like a little bit of a curl. This design does look very polished, and the finish quality here is quite good, and I think it's very comparable to that of the D15. The heatsink clearance is spec'd at 165mm, and the tallest point of the cooler should be that heatsink cover because of the choice of fan by Cooler Master. This is different from Noctua's D15, where if you look at Noctua's documentation, with what most would already consider low-profile 32mm RAM, the height on that cooler actually gets to 168 with that fan, even though the center fan, it only tops out at 165mm. That's because the 140mm A15 fan is not easy to fit, and if you have slightly taller RAM or less than ideal cable management, that's going to push that number even higher. With the 824 Stealth, Cooler Master has reasonably chosen to spec a 120mm Mobius fan for that second tower, and you should be able to go up to 42mm tall RAM without affecting the overall clearance number, and that's quite easy. At the top, this large stealth heat pipe cover here shrouds the 135mm fan that's in between the two towers. That's actually screwed into this heatsink cover, but it pretty much sits right up against the outermost tower. It's not truly push-pull, so the dissimilar fan combo, it's not a huge issue. Each fan is close to its own tower with a gap between those two segments, but for the same PWM signal, the RPM of the larger 135mm fan is lower than that of the 120mm Mobius, so there's some balance there to mitigate any turbulence. At 100%, the 135mm fan runs at 1550 RPM, while the 120mm runs at about 1950 RPM. Here's a quick sound bite, just so you get an idea of what this sounds like. while many dual towers mount with two short bars above and below the CPU socket. This one is different because you've got longer vertical bars here to the left and to the right of the CPU socket. With Intel, you get a backplate that has two positions. The outermost position is for LGA 1700, the innermost position is for 1200 LM5X. Then you mount metal standoffs directly to that backplate. They sit against the motherboard, and then the mounting bars go over that and they're secured with cap screws. For AM4 and AM5, you'll use the stock backplate. The cooler mounts with metal standoffs that thread into the backplate. And these standoffs, they sit directly on top of the protrusions instead of at your motherboard. Now for AM5, the backplate is secured to the CPU mounting mechanism so it doesn't move. But for AM4, which I tested with, because the backplate is loose, don't be surprised if there is quite a bit of up and down play before you mount that heatsink. And another thing I noticed was that because the offset on AM4 backplates protrusions are lower, it may not clear your board layout if you have board components or if the VRM heatsink that's next to it is tall. On my test board, which is the Asus X570 ITX, the mounting bar wasn't going to clear the VRM heatsink, but I was able to get around that by loosening the standoffs a little bit. It's not really ideal, so potentially some taller standoffs or spacers for AM4 would give users more flexibility. Mounting the heatsink is very simple. You just position it and evenly tighten the two screws on top of the cover. It's nicely located on the top here. And I like how easy Cooler Master has made that process because the fan can stay in place, and then you just mount the 120mm fan however you like. Now, if there's one limitation here of the system is that you don't have easy flexibility with how this fan is oriented. Out of the box, it is specified and set up as a rear exhaust, which is fine for how most case airflow dynamics are, but if you wanted to flip the fan for whatever reason, you will have to free the long mounting screws at the base and then take off the cover, then unscrew the fan from the heatsink cover and then flip that whole thing around. You could in theory turn the whole thing around, but then just realize you'll have the unnotched tower sitting over the RAM, and then you'll have an upside down logo as well. But if you're okay with that, then that's also one method. Once mounted though, this thing rocks. And I'm testing here against the Noctua D15 with the Ryzen 7 5800X at 4.6 GHz and 1.25 volts. Obviously with the case panels open in the NR200 test system, at a noise normalized level where the fans on the MA824 is set at 83% PWM and the D15 is at 70%, the MA824 is almost a full degree ahead here, and that's remarkable. We're only about a decibel above the noise floor here, so both coolers are very strong performers in general. When we bump up each cooler to 100% and record the temps and the noise levels, you'll see the MA824 is practically tied with the D15. It's actually a smidge ahead, but it is 1.5 decibels quieter, so this cooler outperforms the D15 despite relying on the smaller fans here. One interesting data point here, if you were to dial the MA824 down to 60%, it's inaudible, but even while silent, it would be absolutely sufficient for a chip like this guy, which is running at about 110 watts PPT. Crazy, right? So yeah, this cooler is absolutely the real deal. The performance is better than the D15, and I didn't retest it here, but the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4 is typically similar to the D15. So yeah, this is easily going to be one of your top class dual towers. The MSRP for this cooler is only $100 US, and that compares favorably to the pricing on the Noctua Chromax D15, which is $120 US right now, and this will slot in $10 to $12 more than the Be Quiet Dark Rock Pro 4. So in general, pricing is quite reasonable. In summary, if you're looking for a big dual tower and you have the clearance, this is an incredible 8 heat pipe cooler that absolutely deserves consideration for both its performance and for its finish quality and looks. There are a couple of quirks with the mounting, but overall, this is a fantastic job. A fantastic cooler by Cooler Master here on this one. I highly recommend it. And because of how good this thing is, I'm really tempted to test it out in the Sliger S620, which has that 165mm spec, so maybe you'll be seeing this in that build soon. Official inventory should be hitting any moment now, so please go ahead and check out the links down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please give a like, and thanks for watching.